This beautiful New England mansion is warm and inviting, at least during the day. But when the sun goes down, some people claim to have had disturbing encounters within these walls, and by people, that includes me. You see, I flew in from London last night to deliver some talks on my non-fiction book, The Frighteners. I'm traveling around the state of Massachusetts, and I spent my first night here at Queset House. But what can I say? After what happened to me in my bedroom last night, I'm inclined to think that this place really might be haunted just like they say. Prepare to enter a place filled with history and character and a lingering presence that sometimes likes to make itself known. Because I'm Peter Laws, and this is The Shadows of Queset House. The Queset House is a 19th century mansion built in the European Gothic style. It sits just a stone's throw away from Ames Free Library, a striking and atmospheric building that serves the community of Easton. Set amongst gorgeous grounds, this unique home was built by Oakes and Ames in 1854. He made it for him and his wife, Katherine. Now, Oakes and Katherine had a son. His name was Winthrop Ames. He took over the mansion in the 1930s. He was a Broadway theatre producer, director and playwright. He also was a screenwriter, and so some of his celebrity friends came to visit Queset House, walking through that very door, including Leslie Howard, Katherine Cornell, George Arliss. Some of the stars of stage and screen came here and would perform in the gorgeous grounds. Winthrop Ames actually built a stage out there. It's still used today. He built 5 acres meticulously manicured with a reflecting pool, stone columns, walled gardens, and a stage for a pergola for the celebrity performances. Well, these days, Queset House is a bustling hub for the community with events and meetings. I've been here today and met many locals from Easton who come to this place to use the digital lab to work and to research or simply read. There was a finger painting class for kids here this morning, so the place is filled with life. But when they close it up at night and darkness falls, well, there have been reports of a distinct change in mood, from welcoming and pretty to eerie, intense and frightening. Let me tell you just a few of the experiences that people have had. The house used to be a home and is now used for the community. But in the 1960s and 70s, this place fell into disuse. It was left empty and lonely, you could say. But like all small towns, it's the abandoned places that always seem to fascinate the local teenagers. And during those decades, young people would come over to Queset and somehow get in, creeping around the old dark house looking for a cheap scare. Though there were some, perhaps, who wouldn't dare set foot in a place like this after dark, even in their wildest Halloween moods. Well, during those decades, this town was understandably concerned about the trespassing. Not only was the house private, it could also be dangerous crawling around here in the dark. And so they decided to post house sitters in the evenings. These sentries, as it were, would sit in the old house and keep watch, listening out for little knocks and creaks. That might mean local kids were climbing through a window or prizing one of the old wooden doors back. Well, one night, one of these house sitters fell asleep in a chair inside the house. But when he woke, however, he soon realized that he wasn't alone. You see, he saw a strange mist seeping into the room, and the mist was rising up through the spaces near the door frames and the baseboards. And then a figure appeared, emerging from the mist. The man was horrified, but then the figure and the mist vanished. The town historian Ed Hans told me that someone he knew was a house sitter during those decades when the house was in disrepair. This historian's account was quite chilling, especially when it took place in the room that I'm sleeping in, this one. This time the house sitter was sleeping over in the house to make sure it was safe from invaders, and so he went to the bedroom on the 3rd floor. He had little idea that this room would become the place of invasion, and it wouldn't be teenagers. As he lay in bed, he noticed something in the room. A mist, green in color, was starting to rise from the bottom of this bed. This was shocking enough, but then he was astonished to see a figure emerging from the mist. It was a man, an elderly man. Ed said the witness had told him that he could see the wrinkles on this man's face. And what's particularly disturbing, considering what I'll share about my own experience, is that this old man was angry, furious in fact.
Get out of here now. Don't want you. Don't want you to get out.
Ed said that his friend watched the old man, this spectre, raising his fists in the air at the end of the bed. He was absolutely livid about this man being in this bedroom. His friend wasn't too proud to admit that he was terrified. And as the old man raged on at the end of the bed, the friend pulled the covers over his head and tried to hide away. I know that sounds like a ridiculous way to defend yourself, but believe me, even though it's just a piece of material, if you ever find yourself in that position, I bet you would do the same. He blocked the raging figure out and waited there, shivering in terror. And when he eventually plucked up the courage to pull back the cover, he was gone. I asked Ed what he felt about these stories and whether the house could be haunted. He told me that he couldn't help but feel very uneasy in one particular part of the house, the third floor, the one I'm staying on. If you're curious to know where the bedroom is, you look at the top of the building, you can see a room just here in the kind of the middle turret. That's where this lounge is, a place for writers to get inspiration, look out, and write. But along here, that is the bedroom right there. That is the bedroom in which people will sleep at night and have a good night's sleep perhaps, but for some, not so much. In the 60s and 70s, when the house was vacant and empty, like I said, people would come over here nonetheless, like a young couple who decided to spend some time in the abandoned gardens of Queset House. At that point, the ornate and beautiful landscaping that Winthrop Ames had organized was wild and neglected and overgrown. While the couple were here in the gardens, the girlfriend suddenly spotted a figure standing near them in the darkness. Shocked, she told the boyfriend, who turned around, and sure enough, they both saw a man just standing there, or over there, staring at them. The figure was described as having such a dead face that the terrified couple just ran away, scrambling through the weeds and brambles, desperate to get as far away as possible from those gaunt, staring eyes. That comment about the figure having such a dead face is chilling. Have you ever seen a dead body in real life? Can you imagine seeing a face like that, only from somebody standing up with the dead eye stare locked on you? Yeah, I'd run too. Well, sometime later, the boyfriend wound up talking to Ed Hans. The boyfriend described what the figure looked like, which made Ed's eyebrows spring up because he hurried to grab a picture from the house and showed it to him. The boyfriend's jaw dropped. "That's him! That's the man," he said. The picture was of Winthrop Ames, who had lovingly helped make the garden look so beautiful. Apparently, the ghost of Winthrop Ames hasn't been sighted since the gardens were reworked and restored. Perhaps he's happy now and sees no need to patrol them in sorrow. Or perhaps his spirit was simply out for a stroll that evening and had simply returned to the house where he lived. Or maybe where he still lives. Michelle Dubry started working for the library almost 30 years ago. She claimed to have had a lot of experiences over the years when in this building. Well, her husband John had also experienced anomalies too. For example, he spoke about staying overnight in the mansion while a Civil War reenactment was being carried out. At 2 a.m., he went inside to use the bathroom of the home. But while he was in there, he heard heavy booted footsteps outside the bathroom door. He assumed an impatient visitor was desperate to use the toilet. but there was nobody there. Disturbed, he searched the house looking for any sign of someone. There was nobody. And yet the hammering clump of boots outside the door was absolutely unmistakable. Well, John Dewberry was at Queset House the following year, at the same time when the Civil War reenactors had set up camp again. John was sitting on the porch of the mansion here with a friend, and there was a window behind them. And as they talked, they both noticed somebody walking through the house, near to the window. Now, the friend saw this person through the window, but John didn't because his back was to it. However, the light from the inside of the house was casting outwards onto the porch, which meant that John clearly saw the shadow of a person walking past them inside the house, and yet there was nobody inside to cast a shadow. John said they searched every inch of the house looking for who it could be, but there was nobody there at all. You ever heard of that before? Of a ghost casting a shadow? There's another story with Michelle and John that involves a paranormal investigation team. One night, a team of ghost hunters was staying in the house, and they were using various types of equipment to gather evidence of a haunting. While this was going on, Michelle was on the second floor and John was up here on the third. Well, Michelle went upstairs, and as she did, she noticed a man who was sitting in one of the rooms. He was over on the right-hand side and he was looking out of the window. They have to appreciate it was dark in the house that night as the paranormal team were working on their investigation. And so when Michelle looked into the room, it was very shadowy, but the figure of the man was sitting in there beyond doubt. She described it as a totally black silhouette. It was so clearly a man that she assumed it must be her husband sitting down, and so she called out, "Oh, John!" But just as she called out his name, she felt somebody behind her. She spun around and saw John standing there. And when she looked back into the room, the figure was gone. Speaking of paranormal investigators, a team came to study this house once, and their equipment picked up a clear stick figure formation of a person, and the person was sitting in this particular chair. They say that if you sit in this chair, you might get the attention of whoever sits there. Whether such attention is a positive or negative thing, who can say? I think I'll sit in that chair, but I might wait until tomorrow when I leave this place. I'm not so keen on sitting in it when I'm going to sleep here tonight. Well, the reason I'm staying here is that there is an author in residence program, and that's where authors can come to stay at the library for a long or short stay. And in exchange, the author provides some sort of talk or workshop. I'm going to be doing a talk here on my book, The Frighteners, the non-fiction book. Well, when I came here, I noticed a folder with information about Easton and a few other little things, you know, information about local food and Wi-Fi passwords. I also found this just sitting here, a picture of Winthrop Ames, just sort of chilling in both senses of the word, I think. But I also found this book, and this is a journal. And it's a journal that has been like a visitor's book, you know, that other authors that have come to stay here. Sorry, I keep looking because I hear little noises now and again, and you just want to check them out. A journal of people who have stayed here. And I've been looking through it, and it's interesting. In it, they write about their stay at Queset House, and it's fascinating to see how different people have reacted to the place. Almost everyone has had a great experience. I found an entry from October 30th, 2022, from a group who came to do a paranormal investigation here. Sarah Campbell from Spirits of New England writes, "We were invited to the house to host a series of paranormal lectures and ghost hunts. Needless to say, the Queset House has a few ghosts hanging around. But don't be scared," it says. "They're quite friendly. They go on to write, "Throughout our stay, we heard someone walking around while no one else was in the house. Some chattering, and I even heard my name said, Sarah. We believe the spirit's name is Megan. So if you happen to encounter her, just say hi to her. We may not know much about her, but we do know she's interested in the people who stay here. Maybe if you're lucky, she might say hi to you, like she did to me. Happy hauntings," it says. I found another entry from back in 2017. An author called Lucille Burt wrote a nice entry on how she loved staying in the house, but then I just spotted this little line which said, "I had one encounter with the ghost, a friendly one, or maybe it was a dream." In an article, I learned of another author who stayed here, and her experience was rather less friendly. She said that she'd always felt uncomfortable in one particular part of the house. Venture a guess, the 3rd floor. One of the authors who stayed here said that when she was on this floor, she always got the sense of being watched. And she added that, quote, "It seemed worse at night. I totally get why she says that. In the daytime, all parts of the house feel peaceful and relaxed, but when you're alone here and the sun is slid way down in the sky, it's got a different feeling." She said that she would often wake up at 3 a.m. Remember that? Feeling like she was being watched in the bed. But it got worse, because on one of these mornings, she woke and saw someone sitting on the corner of her bed. Some kind of shadowy figure, and though she couldn't make out the eyes, she said she knew this thing was staring intently at her. She was terrified, of course, and so she shut her eyes tight. When she opened them again, the figure, whoever it was, had vanished. A woman called Callie Muratori worked as the Queset House manager at one point, and she was working one night in the house by herself, and she'd been hearing a strange ringing sound. She was trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. Well, it turned out it was coming from here, the elevator. Now, I've been told today by a staff member that sometimes this elevator or lift does weird things. Maybe just an old mechanism, perhaps, or something else. Well, that elevator runs up just outside my bedroom door, so I really don't want to hear it sliding open any second in the middle of the night. Well, Muratori figured out it was the lift, but soon after she suddenly heard a door slamming hard. She said she knew precisely what the main door and the back door sounded like. So she knew that that slam was not either of those. It was a door slamming from inside the house. Though she knew there was nobody in there. She said, quote, "It sent chills up my spine." This lift is a little temperamental, with a sign on it that says slow and steady, 60 seconds per floor. I was in this lift earlier. I had a heavy case to bring up to my room. It reached the 2nd floor and opened the door, even though I had hit for floor 3. So I shut the door again and pressed 3 once more. It just went up to 3 and the lift door remained shut. I thought, wait, am I going to get stuck inside here? And then the lift opened a tiny fraction. I went to pull the door open a little, but as soon as my finger touched it, it pressed closed with force, and then it took me back to the 2nd floor. I thought, well, I don't want to get stuck in this thing, so I lugged my heavy case up the stairs. And when I got to the top, I walked past the lift and saw that it had finally risen to this level with the door fully open. Was it a glitch? Probably. Or was something or someone trying to mock me or play a game? Or stop me from getting to floor 3? On another occasion, she also heard heavy footsteps stomping on the carpet of the computer room above her, even though she knew there was nobody in there, because she had locked that room only moments before. She said, "I walked out, set the alarm, and was so happy when I got to my car." Well, that's good for her, but I can't just leave this place. It's where I'm staying. And last night, I didn't even have the option to leave because I hadn't picked up my hire car yet. So I was stuck here, which isn't exactly what you want when something very freaky happens to you in the middle of the night, which I guess means it's time to tell you what happened to me. I had a strange moment here. It was after dark and I was writing up my research at this very desk. At one point, I suddenly realized that I could see the hallway in the reflection of the glass in front of me, which was a little disconcerting. I thought, what would I do if I saw someone just walking past or into the room behind me? I was alone in the house. I didn't see that. So I tried to focus on something else. I was taking a break. I think I was watching, dumb Instagram videos. At that point, I wasn't even thinking about haunted things until I felt a sudden wave of coldness wash over my body. Now, I've heard this in many paranormal cases, and I'll be honest with you, I sometimes just think, didn't you just walk into a draft? I wasn't walking anywhere. I was literally sitting at this desk when I felt it, and the coldness made me tingle. And I thought, whoa, is this feeling meaning that I'm about to see something? I looked up to look at the reflection, but there was nothing. And like 100 horror movies, I thought, just because it's not in the reflection, if I turn, I did this so many times, turn to see it, would it be there? There was nothing there. And so there was nothing really remarkable about that moment, but it would be later on that first night when something actually more tricky to explain happened. Something woke me at 3 a.m. Again, at this point, I didn't know about the other author being woken at that time. And what woke me wasn't even a sound, because I was wearing my sleep headphones. I got these fancy headphones which block out sound and play ambient noise into my ears, so I couldn't even hear anything in the room. What woke me? What woke me was the feeling of two hands curling around my shins and ankle area, and then pressing me up and down onto the bed over and over. The feeling of this hard rocking motion woke me up instantly. But as it happened, I cannot lie, I was too freaked out to open my eyes straight away, so I just kept them closed and then I edged them open slowly. And as I did, I saw that there was, nobody at the end of the bed, pushing my legs up and down. Now you might say, the dream, the hypnagogic hallucination, well, maybe. But I am telling you, I have never in my entire life had that sensation. And yet that's what I felt when I happened to be in this room. And then today I start finally researching this house and learn that people have seen things in this room at 3 a.m. and that the ghost isn't nasty, it's friendly or even playful. When I read that word playful, I got chills. It made me think of a kid messing around with my legs. Could it be Megan, the little girl who was mentioned? I do know that there used to be a pond that my window now overlooks, a reflection pond. It was filled in many years ago because a child drowned in it. Is there a child who still plays in this house? Teasing visitors in the dead of night for fun? Well, I somehow managed to fall asleep again. Now shattered after all. About an hour later, I found myself waking up again. Only this time, nothing was touching my legs. Instead, I felt somebody climbing onto the bed. And then I felt pressure on my body. Not just my chest, but my arms, my hands, my entire torso, something pressing down, basically someone lying on me. I opened my eyes, scared to see what might be there, but again, there was nothing. And the sensation was soon gone. Now, I hear you, right? I know about sleep paralysis, a temporary but scary phenomena that can have a sleeper waking up but still be asleep. They feel a pressure on their chest, might even see strange figures near the bed. Did I have a moment of sleep paralysis? Maybe. I've just got to say, though, that I have never, ever experienced sleep paralysis before in my life. And besides, while that might account for the pressure on my torso, I just can't see how that explains somebody grabbing my legs and bouncing them onto the bed. Yeah, it's weird here. When the sun goes down. Makes you wonder, could this place really be haunted after all? Queset House is a wonderful place. And for almost every single person who enters it, it's filled with peace and warmth. And besides, thinking about it, even if people have had encounters here after dark, does that mean that therefore those entities or presences must be malevolent or to be feared? I mean, when someone sees a figure emerge out of mysterious mist, it's absolutely reasonable to be terrified by that, but does that automatically mean that the figure they see is dangerous or evil? Well, not necessarily. What if the shadows and whispers of this place just want to greet the overnighters with that New England charm and friendliness? I've certainly experienced that today with the people of Easton. What if that welcoming spirit just happens to carry on beyond the grave? Figures emerging from the mist, maybe it's just simply saying, welcome to our home. And yet, after staying here myself, lying in the dark room at the top of that house, wondering what the sounds might be in the vast house lurking below me, you cannot help but feel your heart start to pound and the skin on your arms pull just that little bit tighter. And as I sat in that place, when everybody else had gone home, I often found myself looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone looking back. And all that talk of a gentle New England welcome seems to ring a little hollow when you remember that most people do not welcome a guest by creeping into their bedroom at night, grabbing their legs and pushing them up and down repeatedly, almost theatrically, you could say, into the bed for some sort of show. But then I suppose this house was often filled with people who liked to put on a show. I'm Peter Laws, and you've been listening to the Shadows of Queset House. Good night.